Hey guys, what's up? This is Pantsar Dragon, and today we'll be doing the top 10 junglers for solo queue. And recently a new item came out that was meant for tank junglers, and in my opinion is pretty OP. As for 2200 gold, you do get a lot of stats like the free Sunfire Cape, and so on, which means I think tank junglers are really good right now. But of course your top tier junglers will still be in this patch since they are just good junglers. And since there's a large champion pool right now for the jungle, I think it would be a good idea to do top 10 instead of 5 right now. And so with all that being said, let's get started. Alright, so number 10 we do have Fizz. In some people's eyes, Fizz is really strong. In my opinion, I don't think he's that strong, but he is a pretty decent jungler. He can go Skirmisher Saber, and there's no one in the game that can basically duel him if he activates that on someone. The true damage coming from Skirmisher Saber is also increased by 20% from his ultimate, and he can also stick to his targets easily with his E and Q. So that's why Skirmisher Saber on him is strong, and people are emphasizing this attack speed build on him to make use of his W more. But I do think Devour is not a great item, since if you are losing, it's really hard to get stacks. Anyways, explaining Fizz, so he's really good in skirmishes like 3v3s, 2v2s, etc. as he doesn't have the fear of getting bursted out and has a lot of sustained damage. But in teamfights, it's easy to peel him off since he doesn't have Zhonya's anymore, and if he does get caught out, it's pretty easy to burst him since maybe he built Bladed Rune King after and didn't get any tanky items. And he also falls off late game because people can now survive his burst damage, which isn't that strong, and it's just hard for him to stay in teamfights without getting taken down by the enemy carries. So that is my opinion of him, but I do feel he is a carry jungler at the same time, so if you know what you're doing, then you can easily carry with him in the jungle. Next up at number 9 we do have Pantheon. So Pantheon is still a good jungler. He does scale with armor penetration and bonus AD, and will do a lot of damage in the early game and mid game. He's also a really strong early game jungler since it's a point and click stun with his W, and he does have the highest base movement speed, so it's pretty easy for him to gank. But what I find great about him is his ultimate that can usually secure you a kill, and the enemy doesn't really know it unless they have deep wards in your jungle or deep wards in the lane, which is kind of impossible, and usually net you some free kills. This is also a good initiation tool if you find a good team fight, but it's even better if you can follow up on someone else's initiation, as I do feel like building a lot of AD in the early game and mid game on Pantheon is the best way to go on him, since he does have high AD ratios. But if you're the only bruiser or tank, then of course you must build tank, which lacks in comparison to AD Pantheon and other tanks since he's not really that tanky. What he does lack is clearing speed since his E doesn't do double damage to minions, and his base attack speed is a bit lowered. Next at number 8 we do have Nidalee, and in this recent patch she did get nerfed a bit on her clear speed since W doesn't do current percent health damage anymore, so it does hurt her early game clearing speed, but of course once she gets level 5 Q or gets level 6 and increases the damage on her Cougar abilities, it's not a problem. Now in the early game she's definitely a strong duelist when she does land that spear on someone, so she can duel the enemy jungler if she wants to. And when mid game comes, once she gets a bit of AP and her Q is maxed out, you're going to know that her spears are going to hurt and she can easily assassinate you if you are alone. She also has really good chase potential, so if a teamfight does go her way, she can easily clean up with her Cougar form, pouncing towards enemies and landing spears on them. And if she does get rolling, she can carry her team by having a lot of AP and just sniping out enemies. Since she is also building AP, her clears become phenomenally fast, and since she has mobility from her Cougar form and the bushes, her clear times are still strong. But I feel that since tanky junglers are gonna be more in this meta, they can easily take that spear shot, not take a lot of damage, have high magic resist, and if they have Warmogs, recover the damage quickly. She is also incredibly snowball reliant as she doesn't bring a lot of utility to her team, so she does fall behind. All she really has is heals and weak ass spears since the only damage you're going to be getting is that base damage, since you don't have any ability power. Although of course if you do know how to land those spears, know how to use her, then she's perfectly fine for you. At number 7 we do have Sion, but Pants, isn't he a top laner? Yes, but also, since they have that new jungle item and his Q got buffed a bit, he's now at the same time a pretty decent jungler. Since he does scale with health on his W, he is immensely strong with that new item, and remember, 25% bonus health is also coming from his passive too, so it's pretty easy to get bonus health on him. His clears are actually pretty good, since when you do charge that Q fully up, it does a lot of damage, and he doesn't actually take a lot of damage because of his W giving him a temporary shield. Once he does hit level 6, it's pretty easy for him to gank those long lanes like top lane and bot lane, or the best case scenario, coming in for a counter gank and getting the enemy all CC'd up for your team to kill them. And say he had a bad start, even if he did do bad, he's still pretty consistent since he has all that CC, has pretty good base damage, and is a tank, so he's pretty consistent. Although, there are some things I don't like about him. First thing is he does have a slow start, so if he does want to gank, it's kinda hard for him, as he doesn't really have any gap closers except for his Stalker's Smite, but that has a low range, so it's usually better for him to just wait until he's level 6. He's also pretty easy to outplay since his Q does take a while to wind up, and his ultimate is easy to sidestep if you have the movement speed and he's not running Elixir of Iron. But even if he does miss it, it still acts as a gap closer, or maybe you blew some flashes from the enemy team, or even an escape, so it might be worth if your team can follow up on it. Although in my opinion he's probably still a better top laner, but if you want to play him in jungle, I still think he's actually a very good jungler too at the moment. Next up at number 6 we do have Vi. So in this patch she did get nerfed a bit, 5 base movement speed lower, and her ultimate does 50 less damage at level 1, but once it does hit level 3, it's the same as the previous patch. Now when base movement speeds do get nerfed, it's definitely not noticeable in game, but say from traveling from point A to B, it might take a bit more time than usual. And things that give percent movement speed like Triforce or even the Dragon buff do get diminished a bit. But bigger than that nerf is of course her ultimate. Having 50 less damage could be crucial in a gank and or cleaning up a kill onto somebody, but it still gets the job done as a gap closer and locking someone down, so it's still pretty good. But since the nerf wasn't that hard, she's still a pretty good jungler in my opinion. Next up at number 5 is going to be Skarner. Wait, what? That doesn't make sense. He doesn't really scale with hit point, and he hasn't been good since season 4 right before they nerfed him. But finally a patch has come out where he can actually build into a decent jungle item instead of just warrior or even AP. As he doesn't really scale with armor penetration, AD, or even AP, the only reason Spirit of the Elder Lizard was good on him was because he could proc it with his Q easily. I mean, he does well with attack damage since he does have a lot of attack speed coming from his Q, and he auto attacks people, but it's just not that much worth it if he doesn't have that much AD scaling. But with this new item, since you know Skarner is really good at sticking to people with his Q, gaining that movement speed, and of course CCing people with his E and his passive, and locking people down with his ultimate, then yes, this item makes him a pretty decent jungler, and not because of +2 damage on both sides of his Q. And also, Righteous Glory did get buffed this patch, and since Skarner does scale well with hit point and mana, some mana issues there now, this item would be great on him for initiating team fights and catching people out. So yes, I do feel like he is a pretty good jungler because of these two reasons, despite what I said before in a previous video. Next up at number 4 is going to be Nautilus. So I feel in this patch Nautilus did get an early game nerf because his W was his main core ability of clearing the jungle, and now he has to put points into his E, which does take a bit of mana when you use it too much, and definitely W was more better for clearing the camps. But his mid game and late game did get better because the cooldown of his E is now 5 seconds instead of 10. That means if you have 40% CDR, you can use it every 3 seconds and do a lot of damage in teamfights and slow enemies consistently. He also scales with health on his W, so the more health he gets, the more tankier he'll be, along with the new Cinderhulk item. And he's also pretty good with Skirmisher's Saber, as he is able to lock down enemies for a long time with his passive, his ultimate, and his E. So he can keep auto-attacking those targets and keep proccing that true damage over time. At the same time, this also makes a pretty good 1v1er, so if someone thinks they can take him down 1v1, well, that's probably not going to happen because of that Skirmisher's Saber. The only thing I really don't like about him is he's kind of mana hungry if you don't have a Frozen Heart or something like that, since his E does cost 80 mana and you can spam it a lot of times in team fights. And his clears also aren't that great as they were before, and if you're thinking about using both W and D for clearing, it does cost 160 mana at level 9, so be careful about that. Next up at number 3 we do have Nunu. So super boring champ to play, I know, but he's pretty good in this patch. The reason is because he does scale pretty good with health, as he does have one of his buffs giving him 10% more maximum health when he does eat one of the creeps at the red camp or blue, and there's another consume buff where he gains 1% maximum health damage on his auto attacks and spells, which isn't saying much because it is 1%, but it is a little something. But the biggest reason I find why he's so good in this patch is because he does now have AoE clears with that new item, Cinderhulk. He was really good at taking out the big creep at camps, but it took a while for him to auto-attack those little small camps to death. But now he doesn't have a problem with that, and that makes his clears incredibly more faster. And again, since he does scale pretty good with health, it's pretty easy for him to get really tanky. And of course, he does have really good peel with his E and R, makes your AD carry a super duper AD carry, and eats stuff in the enemy's jungle and runs away. But mostly emphasize the new jungle item giving him AoE clears. I actually think that in competitive play he was probably going to be banned or picked most of the time, along with the champion who is going to be number 1 in my tier list. Next at number 2 is going to be Rek'Sai. So nothing really happened to her, honestly, she's still really good. Even with this tank jungler meta coming in, I still think she's one of the strongest junglers in the game right now. Just because she has so much consistency, having those tunnels to do efficient clears, having teleport every 120 seconds at level 6, or if you're level 11 and 16, basically having it up every time you recall, having really good initiation or peeling with her W, and being a pretty good bruiser in teamfights with her Q and E. But one thing I do feel like that needs to get nerfed is her passive. This gives her a lot of healing, especially in long team fights, and so all you really have to do is build a lot of resist to be really tanky. Even if you build pure tank, you'll still do a bit of damage with your Q and E, and it's also pretty easy to chase enemies down with your gap closer coming from your E and increase movement speed when you're underground. And also in the early game, if she does get that early game kill, she does definitely have snowball potential over the game, as she's going to be really hard to kill until your team gets some damage. The only real con I can think about her is that she only has one skill, which does CC, but it is really good for initiating team fights and peeling, so that's all you kind of really need on her. And finally at number 1 we do have Sejuani. So in the previous patch, Sejuani was actually a pretty good jungler in my opinion, but now, since with the new Cinderhulk coming out, she is definitely one of the strongest junglers right now, as that item just added free stats for her to get. And she also scales with health, so even better. So why is this girl so strong? It's just because of her consistency. She brings a lot of CC with her E, R, and Q. She definitely has a great initiation, as it is instantly stunning people or slowing them, and contributing to the wombo combo factor. Her W also has a lot of damage on it with the maximum % health damage when you hit someone with the enhanced auto attack. But of course, the more hit point you have, the more damage you'll be doing when swinging that flail around. And also, Liandry's is a great item to get on Sejuani just because you are the initiator, so dealing current hit point damage, which is doubled since they're CC'd for a very long time from your R and E, and probably the enemy team having 100% health, it's probably going to deal a lot of damage. So Sejuani does damage, has pretty good clears, is pretty tanky, scales with health, has a lot of CC, and free armor coming from her passive makes a really strong jungler, and either pick her or ban her because she's just super strong right now. On to honorable mentions. If you're a good Lee Sin player, play him. If you aren't good at him, don't play him. Same thing goes with Rengar. If you know how to get kills with his ultimate all the time, then play him, because you can snowball the game out of control and win it off that. Next up is Fiddlesticks, and he still has his ultimate and can probably kill carries if he gets onto them, but is easily countered by knockbacks or vision of him. Now next up is Volibear, and I actually think he's pretty good. He's not the best initiator, but in teamfights he can definitely deal a lot of damage with his ultimate and having that Sunfire around him too. And since he does scale with health, his W will deal a lot of damage. I just don't like how he doesn't have a really good gap closer, and I feel like that's what's kind of holding him back. He maybe could be top 10, but I don't have a good feel for him right now. There's definitely a lot more junglers that could be in the honorable mentions, but first off, I haven't tried them all yet, and second off, Zac is still a piece of shit. Hey guys, so thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did enjoy this video, check out top 5 best top laners for solo queue for patch 5.5, as Lissandra did get nerfed, so she won't be in there anymore, and we gotta find someone to replace her. And then there's top 5 best mid laners, and top 5 best supports. Even though it does say patch 5.4 and 5.2, it's relatively the same in my head who I think the strong mids are or supports. So again, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy this video, subscribe right there. It's easy, it's free, and it's one click away. And I will see you guys next time.